Hello and welcome to the Critically Clueless. I'm a Monk, and today we are in Age of Wonders 4. Now today's video is a little bit different. We're going to be doing a beginner's guide video, a complete beginner guide video for this game. Hopefully going over everything you need to know or everything you need to think about when starting your game. Now, the first thing that I should say is I'm not going to cover any of the story realms within this game. There are 5 story realms. I'm not going to go into the best ways to complete them and what you're going to be doing, but I am going to be creating a realm, creating a faction, and just going through the basic step-by-steps of this game. Hopefully, by the end of this video, you guys have a better understanding of Age of Wonders 4. And if you do, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'd also like to mention we do actually have an active and growing Discord. We've got loads of gamers involved in that Discord, and I'm trying to get more people involved from Age of Wonders in as well. The link can be found down in the description. Okie dokie, so let's start. Let's go with create a realm. Now, when you go to create a realm, there's loads of different options that you have to do, and the advanced settings are, well, you get to control an awful lot, from realm setup to the different types of factions that you want. You can even bring in factions that you have previously created as well. Which is quite cool. You've also got the game flow, the basic, mechanics of the game and how you want to play it. And if you're just starting out, you're probably not going to want to mess around with any of that. So we're going to leave it pretty standard. Now, player distance relates to how close and how big you want your map. So if you have far, the player distance far, you're going to have a pretty big map. And again, if you go for close, it's going to be a small, intricate map. We're going to leave that on standard for this. We're going to leave the 7 players as well. That relates to how many other factions are involved. That's also your number as well. So, keep that noted. But we're going to keep that a pretty standard, bog standard thing. I do quite like the amount of different options you get here, because you really do have options to like spawn dragon nests or spawn extra ancient wonders, which will get you extra resources, or of course extra little dungeons and bosses for you to fight and go through. So I love the amount of different options that Age of Wonders actually has for you. Now, when it comes to create a faction, the game does give you a ton of already ready-made and perfectly adequate choices for you, but really where this game does excel is just how deep the faction creation is. Now, I've already created a ton of different factions and I've enjoyed playing every single one of them, but we're going to create a brand new one today. Let's have a little look-see. And we're going to try and go for as generic as possible. Obviously, I don't know what you guys like. And one of the things I would recommend before going in is, if you want to role play this game however you want to play it, absolutely go for that, guys, because this is an amazing game and it's certainly played best you just having fun. So if there's a type of build you want to go, then eat your hearts out and do it. If you want to go pure dark side or pure light or a little bit in the middle, this game really does give you the leeway to do all of that. What I would recommend, however, is the fact that this game has 6 different affinities, and I have done a video about those affinities as well. If you want to watch that and go through it, you will find that within my Age of Wonders 4 playthrough. But those affinities have, very particular things about them. And some affinities, for instance, don't merge well with the opposite affinity. My best advice for you is to pick 2 affinities. That way you can go down the main paths either side. And then you can add a 3rd one as well. If you add 2 more, or if you add too many more affinities, on top of, say, 2 main affinity lines, you're really going to be undercutting yourself when it comes to this game, because you do have in-game events happen where you kind of need to be high within a certain affinity tree in order to get the better outcomes. It will say, for instance, do you want to talk to this city? If you have X amount of affinity points in order, for instance, you're going to be able to get a good alliance with them nice and early. And if you don't, you've got, say, a 70% chance of failure, in which case something within your city would be, like production, may be blocked for X amount of turns. That's just a scenario. So you do want to have high affinity points in whichever affinity you do actually go down. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, we are here to build a faction, and we have 2 traits that we can pick right now. You can go anywhere at all. We could be a ratkin, for instance, and they already have their predetermined things, or toadkin. But we're going to change the body trait really quickly and go over some of these body traits. Now, there are some really good body traits to go through. Bolt work, I think, is actually really good. You get defensive mode, which grants you an extra 2 in defensive. And in my opinion, when it comes to actually micromanaging my battles, I'm going to go into defensive mode quite often. Therefore, this one is probably the most universal thing that we could probably grab, especially if you do plan on doing the turn-based combat that this game has to offer. Then you've got Hearty, which gives you an extra 10 hit points. Now, hit points are always handy, so therefore this is a good one. You can see exactly why that would be good. Extra 20% accuracy on physical ranged attacks or magic attacks. Again, keen-sighted. I really like this. It's a really good one, especially if you plan on going, for instance, say a magic build. That's really good because within Mind Trait, you can pick up another trait which will also help with those magic attacks. So this is a very good one for that reason. Quick Reflexes is a 30% harder to hit by ranged attacks. Not bad, but again, it's not something you necessarily need. Resilient is gain 3 extra status resistances. This could be useful, but I don't seem to find me getting terribly needing those extra resistances isn't something that we necessarily need too much. And again, with Resilient as well, Resolute is another one that I wouldn't necessarily go down. Having Strong would be a really good one if, for instance, you were going down the melee route, or, for instance, the chaos route. A great one to pick up for that reason. Tough, a standard +2 defense. I quite like that. And then you've got the mounts. Now, any one of those mount options are good. Very, very good. The Nightmare mounts I find look the best. I think they look absolutely amazing. However, they're probably the worst mount out of all of them. The Intimidating Aura isn't the best ability that you gain. However, all of the mounts do provide you that +10 hit points. And honestly, I think the Unicorn mount is probably the best because the phase ability that you get from it is very, very useful. Anyway, for our build, we're going to go with Bolt Work, just a flat out +2 defense in defense mode, plus we get the +2 resistances as well. Oh, I have messed that up. Let's go back. There's the Bolt Work. There we go. Okay, so water adaptation is what we got right now. Obviously, we went for the toads. Now, what I would say is adaptable is probably one of my favorite perks that I pick up because of the extra 30% experience that your troops will gain for winning battles. Now, having your troops level up through battles and becoming legends is really good. You know, your basic troops can earn some really good abilities and some really good buffs from leveling up. So therefore, your troops being able to level up quicker is a good thing. Now, the arcane focus is what I was talking about back in the body traits. With this, we get a +15% on magic attack and damage. So that's really useful, especially if you're going to go down the magic route, whether that is astral or shadow. They're kind of your main two, but you actually get magic attacks in almost any affinity you go down. Cold-blooded is a -50% to morale from all sources. Now, morale is not something that I have struggled with in my game at all. Not once, actually, in all of the times I have played this game. Maybe that system will get buffed. I have completed several maps now, completed all of the stories, spent, I believe, 80 hours in this game already. Morale's never been an issue. Defensive tactics, you gain a +1 in defense and resistance when standing next to a friendly unit with defense tactics. Again, this would stack with bolt work, so that's a really good one. Elusive, gain a +6 defense and resistance against retaliation attacks and attacks of opportunity. Again, this is one where, like, if you move your troops close to an enemy and attack them, they will retaliate. It could be a good one, not necessarily useful or terribly useful. There's better perks around that you can get. In the first turn of combat, the unit can move up to 6 hexes. Now, it is a good amount, but for me, it's not good enough to warrant picking over a lot of the other ones. Ferocious deals 40% damage via retaliation attacks and attacks of opportunity. This is extra damage that you do. This can actually be quite a good one, especially if you go down the chaos route again, with all of those melee units that we get. Overwhelm Tactics is a 20% critical hit chance when standing next to friendly units with Overwhelm Tactics. Again, this can be a really good one because this will buff your critical attacks. Definitely one that I would have a think about grabbing. 20% damage on flanking with Sneaky. You can flank really easily in combat. Go around the side, go around from the back. It's something that can be used quite a lot, and you are getting that 25% damage. Not a bad option, to be fair. This one, you have damage penalties from casualties are halved. Again, could be good, not necessarily one that I would do a standout and pick. And then you've got your basic adaptations. So depending on whether you want your race to be better in the water, underground, in desert, or Arctic. Arctic could be a good one if you go down the shadow route, because there is like a cryomancer line that you can go down, and you can change the terrain to ice and stuff like that. So that could be a good one. The same with many of these, really, depending on how you want to play. We are going to go for just the basic adaptable. Our troops gain extra experience. There we go. So we've done our little traits and our physical form. Now we've got our cultures. Now there's 6 different cultures. Every single culture has different perk lines. I would have a really good look and read into how you want to play. Just for argument's sake, this time we're going to go for basic barbarians. This gives us 1 affinity towards chaos, 1 affinity towards nature. And it does come with a few different bonuses. So for instance, our structures, we have extra structures within our game that will give us more food and more draft. And the more draft you have, the more troops you're going to be able to push out. The more food you have, the quicker your cities are going to be leveling up. And then we have our melee units have a primal strike, dealing extra damage on their first strike in combat. This actually can be pretty decent. You've also got another perk, which is a ritual that can be performed. And again, all of these cultures will have different perks, different alignments to look through. So seriously, sit down, have a little think about how you want to play when it comes to creating your culture. The more you play this game, the more you're going to understand those kind of routes. And again, now we have our society traits. Now, I'm not going to go through every single one and go through all the perks and stuff that are here. There's an awful lot. It's pretty plain what each one of them do. Some of them are very, very good. Other ones are good, but they kind of lock you into a type of play, like the chosen uniters. This one, you're going to be good playing this. It does lock you out of some of the other traits as well, and some of them can be quite good. So I tend to prefer playthroughs where I get to choose in my game how I want to play, whether that be good or bad, depending on different situations. There are also society traits that you can pick up, like Bannerlords, for instance, or Chosen Destroyers, where you have to unlock them within your Pantheon. So if you're wondering why you don't have them, it's just because you probably haven't played the game enough yet to have the points to unlock the society traits. They are very good though. There is also the Mana Addicts, which is another one that you can pick up within your Pantheon. Anyway, we are going to go for Adaptable Settlers. I quite like this one. This gives us an extra points towards nature. It gives us an extra city cap as well, meaning that we can have more cities on the board, and this game really doesn't like you having too many cities. You get a major debuff for going over that cap, so if you like to play wide, then Adaptable Settlers is pretty good. Founding cities also cost less Imperium, which is a very important currency within this game. Newly founded cities also start with an extra population, which can be really handy, and of course your starting city does get that extra population as well. So we're going to grab that, and we're also going to grab the Great Builders. Now the Great Builders, I personally love this. You can play good or evil with both of these as well, so it's, you know, there's plenty of options for you. Our quarries will gain a +2 in gold. Gold is useful for so much. We'll talk about that again a little bit later. Special provinces cost less to build, but the best thing about the Great Builders, we already start with a workshop, we already start with Great Walls, which means we're nice and defended right from the beginning, and it saves us a bunch of time trying to get that workshop. So there we go.
Choose your first tome.
Next up, we have our tomes, and there's an awful lot of tomes in this game. The base idea is that you want to be leveling up. So for instance, if you learn 2 tier 1 tomes, that will unlock a tier 2 tome. If you unlock 2 tier 2 tomes, that will unlock a tier 3rd, and then so on all the way up to tier 5, which is the last one, which primarily will be whichever affinity you have chosen to go down, you know, whether that be nature, chaos, order, whatever it is. That tier 5 tome will be what you'll be driving your faction towards. Now, we already have nature perks, we already have chaos, and we already have materium. I would recommend sticking to 3 absolute maximum, but if you want to go more, you can. Your tomes is where you get a chance to kind of add an extra 2 affinity in whatever you want to do, plus you get some pretty cool starting bonuses as well. Like for instance, if I was to pick up Tome of Souls within this tome, I also get Soul Harvest and Soul Collector, which is really cool. With this, I can basically start making skeletons from the very beginning of the game, and every single battle that I go through, I'm going to be harvesting those souls, and I can use those souls to making more skeletons. Just extra free troops. It's a cool little thing. A lot of these tomes have nice little perks and starting bonuses. We are going to go for the Tome of Beasts, however. This will give us a extra starting building, which is the Wildlife Sanctuary. Here we're going to get extra food and extra draft. It also counts as a forester, meaning that I don't actually have to make that building as a province upgrade a little bit later. So there we go, we've done that. And now we've got the choice between a champion or a wizard king. It really does depend on how you want to play. We're going to go with a champion just this time round. We're going to get the extra gold, which is so important. We're also going to get extra city stability. And if that's a mechanic that you're not really sure about in a game and you don't want to waste time to build buildings in order to get better city stability, then the champion could be the route for you, because you don't have to think about it as much being a champion. One thing I would say is that if you get to be the wizard king, you get to choose how you look when you create your character, your main character. In the next step, for instance, we went down a toad route, so we wouldn't have to be a toad if we picked the wizard king. Another good thing is if you want to do magic, if you want to do a magic victory, I would suggest going down the Wizard King route. You don't have to though. And if you want to go down the more melee troop routes, I would suggest going down a champion, because you're going to get more gold, which is what those troops are going to be used for the upkeep. So we have made our race. Now let's do a quick randomizer. And this is how we look. I think we look rather beautiful. So let's just accept that. And we have a few little options with our current title: Warlord, Emperor, War Queen, Empress, etc. We're going to leave it as it is and venture onwards. Yeah, there is so much to go through in this game. Obviously, we're 20 minutes in and we haven't even started the actual game yet. Creating your realm, creating your faction, there is so much to go through. It's one of the good things about Age of Wonders 4, really. Okie dokie. So when you very first start, I would recommend looking at the troops you've managed to get. Typically, you'll always start with at least one scout. You want to have them going around, picking up and exploring as much of the map as possible. One thing I would say, and I would recommend, if you actually click on your character, press down on your D-pad and look in, you can actually set that to enable auto exploration. I would recommend auto exploration just because they really do seek out the edges of the map and just kind of paint a picture for you. It's one less thing you have to think about, and it really doesn't matter if your scouts die. They don't have a lot of damage, they don't have a lot of power, and they're very, very cheap. So that's one thing we're going to do. Now, when it comes to our main character, our hero, he has some troops on him already as well. And we're going to use him to seek out things like this. Now, this is a little gold stash. There are nice little pickups for you around the map. And there's also little bad guys too. So you've got this guy right here, who happens to have an army stack of 3. That is represented by the flag above his head. And we can see how powerful he is as well. He could be a little bit of a battle, but I do think he would be a good start in battle for us on our turn 2. He's also guarding some resources. Sometimes you get these guys on, for instance, a little node like this. Now this will be a province node for us to pick up. And if he's sitting on that gold mine, then that little bonus would be blocked to us, so we'd have to clear it in order to claim it. And of course, we've got our main city. Everyone starts with a throne city. You get no real say over where it starts, unfortunately. You are given what you are given, and it can be quite intimidating when you very first start this game, because there's a lot of options for you to look at and a lot of things for you to kind of understand what's happening. Now, you got 3 main incomes at the beginning, which relate to this one city. And then you have 4 incomes, which relate to your global empire node. So you've got gold, you've got mana, knowledge, and of course, Imperium. And these are all really, really useful, but they are collective. So if we had 3 cities or 4 cities, as our level cap is 1 of 4, then every amount of gold, mana, knowledge, and Imperium that those 4 cities gain all go to my empire. But the first 3 are going to be city related only. Now, pumping up your food is really, really good, because that will boost your population. The more of a population that we actually have, the more provinces that we get to unlock. And as you can see, dotted around our main city, we have 4 little X's. They are provinces that our city can claim. Let's see if we can unlock one right now. And we can. Okie dokie. So your game's going to be very, very different to mine. These are randomly generated maps for the most part. But I would tend to look for the provinces that already have a little bonus to them. Like, for instance, we can see we've got some sheep here. So we've got some pastures. That's going to give us a plus 10 food right off the bat. We also have a gold vein, as we already mentioned. That's going to give us a plus 10 gold right off the bat. And we're talking from turn 1. That's going to really stack up in our favor. And then you've got other pastures where, as you can see, we can build almost anything we want here. We can build a forestry because there's a little bit of forest. We can build a quarry, which is going to be really good for production and getting our cities kind of off the ground. And as you can see, we already have great builders, which give us a plus 2 gold from that as well. So not only would we get the basic production increase from making a quarry, but we'll also get that plus 2 gold, and we're already on an iron deposit, so that's going to be a plus 15 in production, and we're going to get that basic gold as well. The more production that we have in our cities, the quicker we're going to be able to build different buildings. Like, for instance, if we wanted a stonemason. Now, if we wanted a stonemason, it's going to cost 250 production. Now that is thinking about the amount of production that we actually have in our city right now. So we have 49 production. So therefore, that's why it's going to take us 6 turns to churn out those stonemasons. But that does give us an extra 15 production income. The more you stack that, the quicker you're going to be able to build your buildings. So let's have a little look-see and see if we can get a storehouse. This will give us the plus 10 food, which means we're going to be able to level up our population quicker. And I would recommend prioritizing food first, then production, and then of course gold, because you're going to need gold for almost anything. It doesn't matter whether you go down the magic route or whether you go down the troops route, you know, the chaos route type of deal. You're going to need gold, because whether it is upkeep for your troops or whether it is to speed up buildings, like for instance, if we look at our storehouse, you can see that we can actually hurry the production. Now it's going to cost us 260 gold to hurry it, but that instantly creates that building right there and then. So the more gold that you actually have throughout your game, the quicker you're going to be able to do stuff. Now I'm going to set the shrine just because it gives us that extra mana income, which is another good thing. Mana income is used for obviously casting spells, both in a battle and on world right now. And it's also used for the upkeep value of magical inclined units. So if I did have my army of skeletons, for instance, right now that would cost me mana to sustain those. And you definitely don't want to go into the minus of gold or mana, because your troops will desert you. They will turn into enemies and they will be on the map there to kill your troops. You're going to have to kill them. There's no way to get them back, unfortunately, either. Now that brings us to knowledge. Now knowledge is your research. The more and greater knowledge you have, the quicker you're going to be able to research all of those tomes, the quicker you're going to be able to level up your magic. It's really useful. You definitely want to have a high knowledge, whether that is to unlock the tier 5 tomes for the magic victory, or whether that is simply to unlock better troops. You're going to want a high knowledge. That's another thing I should really talk about, is our troops. Now, every single faction, every single affinity, it doesn't matter what it is, you all start with the basic 3 troops. You will have your scout, which will be on a horseback, which will be able to traverse the map rather quick and, you know, seek out new locations. Very useful. You're always going to have your skirmishers, and then you're always going to have your warrior type of units. Everyone kind of starts with the same troops, same type of troops, and you have 3 of them. In order to unlock more troops, more basic troops, you're going to need to upgrade your town hall, the more you upgrade your town hall, the better troops you're going to be able to have, all the way up to tier 3 troops. You're going to be able to get them through just simply upgrading your town hall. As you can see, if we upgrade to town hall level 2 right now, we're actually going to unlock the Fury and the War Shaman. And if we go down there, you can see those units. They're pretty good. They'll be the basic tier 2 troops, but they are pretty good troops you're going to want to upgrade as soon as possible, because it's going to be your main way to kind of get those extra troops in. But right now we're not going to have any troop building because we don't currently have the money. I would recommend building an extra scout when you do have the money though. Let's set our arcane research, and this is going to be randomly generated from the tome that we already picked. We already saw the spells that it had available to us. And of course, you can hit that reshuffle if you don't like any of the tomes that it has to offer. I would always recommend picking the highest level spell, tome, whatever it is that you can unlock, because if you learn the higher level stuff, that's only going to ever increase the amount of level spells and things that you can actually unlock. If you go through, for instance, all of the level 2s and then all of the level 3s and then all the level 4s that tome had to offer, it's going to take you a considerably longer time to unlock another tome and the next one, and so on. So let's have a little look-see at what we got. None of this is really what we want, so let's have a quick reshuffle. And there we go. So we got the generic ones here as well. Both are really good. These are unit enchantments, and they will buff and improve our scout units, for instance, making them, you know, do their job better on the map. And again, we do want our scouts to be pretty good, so knocking them out early in the game is going to be very, very useful to you, especially if you're playing on those bigger maps. If you're playing the basic story maps, or if you're playing on a smaller map, then you don't necessarily need to waste your time getting Enchanted Crow or the Wayfinder. There we go, and that is turn 1 done. So we can see our scout is automatically going around doing the business that it is doing. And we are going to be gaining the resources that we're going to get buffed per turn when we actually take over. And as you can see, we have now got the 40 Imperium. We get 40 per turn, which is quite cool. And we've got a little bit of cash and mana now too. So let's have a little look-see at our troops. And we're going to set another Pathfinder to build, so that way we can also put him on auto scouting. Now, something you can do with your Imperium, especially helpful early game, I actually do it more often than not, to be fair, because I kind of feel that I tend to make more Imperium than I need to spend sometimes. So we can actually boost and rush our population. So we're going to spend 30 Imperium just to recruit an extra population to us. There we go, and that's going to mean we have an extra province that we can pick up. So if we do food right off the bat, that's going to be, because of the pastures, 17 food we're going to be picking up from there, which is rather nice. And if we have a look at our city, we can see that the next time that we actually gain a level is going to be in 3 turns time. And then we're going to be able to pick ourselves another province then as well. So let's move our troops and actually go for a little attack. Now, this is a low risk attack. This doesn't mean that we can't win or lose even. But it is one of those ones where you do have to think about what you do in combat. So we're going to manually go through this. Okie dokie, so battle is actually pretty straightforward. If you've ever played a turn-based game before, this is a hexagon grid style combat. We take a turn, they take a turn, and so on. So one thing I would recommend is kind of protecting your king. He can be very, very useful, but if he dies in combat, that's just something you would like to avoid. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to everyone in battle and just put them all in defensive mode right from the off. Now the game's really good at kind of explaining the new things that you may run into in your game as and when it pops up, but sometimes it can leave out a few things as well. But for the most part, the tutorial in this game is absolutely blinding. But if you guys do get stuck on anything, let me know down in the comments. I'll be very happy to help you guys out. Now we've got our war shaman. So if we pop them up, you can actually see the percentage chance of us hitting one of the enemy above their head. Like for instance, if I was to move the war shaman here, we get a 60% chance to hit the enemy from where we are right there. Just trying to see if we can get any better than a 60% chance, but I think 60 is what we've got. So let's just pop them right there. And let's try and do our first attack. It gets us a magic blast. And we missed, but we kind of thought that that might happen. Get our main guy up and running. Now, as he levels up, you're actually going to be able to get a lot of decent stats and things, abilities even that you can get on your main hero, trying to level them as high as possible, and gaining many of those strong abilities is definitely a good idea. It can be quite difficult. The only way I've really found, or the best way I found to level them, is to go down the order route and also go down the shadow route. If you do both of those things, you can get some insane experience for your troops, for your heroes, and it's definitely worthwhile. Now, luckily, our hero is a bit of a tank, so he can take a good bit of a hit. Now, in combat, you will actually get something called spells, and these aren't typically something you can use from the get-go right at the beginning of every battle. It takes a while for some of these to charge up. You can get a perk to be able to use them, you know, straight away. So think about that, but they are very useful. What I would say is that this does use your real world mana as well, so if you don't have much of it, some of these will not be open to you. But it's definitely worth having a look at what spells you actually have available to you, because some of them are really good. They will quite literally change the path of your game. I mean, as you can see, our troops right now are doing insane damage. That is a lot more damage than they would have done had we not used that spell then. And then we should be able to finish them off, hopefully, if our accuracy is good enough. And it is. There we go. We managed to finish them off nicely. There we go. Now, we actually have these troops that we just used. Typically, we would have an archer group when starting, but because of the options that we chose instead of the archer group, we got them. There we go. Main hero got to have a go, and then we can end our turn once everyone's done what they were needing to do. it can be quite frustrating sometimes watching our troops get absolutely battered, and you're just having to sit by and patiently wait for your turn. Right, so if we have a look at our hero and see if he can do some decent damage, we're going to attack the guys at the back here as they're already weak.
This unit has suffered casualties.
There we go. And now let's have a look at these guys. Let's position them first. And then we can flank them. See, I didn't want to attack them the way the game wanted me to attack them because it wasn't giving me the flank option. So positioning your troops and then attacking, it does work. Don't think that you can't do it because the game doesn't want you to do it in that order. There we go. And of course, flanking does give us that extra damage. We're not able to get much accuracy on these guys, probably because we have a lot of troops around that. There we go. But if we press down on our D-pad, we actually have another option as well. So we can actually heal some of our troops. And of course, different units will have different options. So, you know, have a look to see what units you have available to you. Obviously, this is the playthrough that I've got. These are troops that I've got right now. I'm trying to make this video as generic as possible to kind of cover everyone. But of course, the further into the game you go, the more abilities you're going to have. And of course, by the time you get to that stage, you're going to have a better understanding of how this game actually works in the first place. And there we go. Our boss is going to get a nice bit of experience. Finish off the last dude. And everyone's going to be happy. And there we go. We got the victory. We also got a little bit of rewards right there. As you can see, we got some food for our main city, which is pretty cool. And we still got a little bit of movement left as well. So let's pop up here. Hasn't leveled up yet. We have a couple more turns on that. But as you can see, the auto exploration, it's not entirely dumb. It knew to pick up that free and easy cash. It won't enact any battles. So if there is an easy battle that it should be able to win, or it will avoid it. It will go around enemies. It won't trespass either. So when it comes to the negotiation options in the game, it won't cause you any harm for it to do that. One thing I would note is that, as you can see, our troops are a little bit wounded, and our boss even is wounded. Now, he will heal when he is in his own area. He won't heal when he is out of it too much at all. If anything, there are perks you can pick up to change the healing rates. So have a look at that. But, you know, having your dude in your area is going to help you out a lot more, especially if they're injured. Wait for them to be full health and then they are away again. One thing I would note is if we can select him, the top left hand side of this, so it says Army of Jord, you can see that we've got numbers 272. Now that relates to our power, our collective power, and any troops that we'll be bringing into that battle. If we are injured, that power will decrease, and if we are at full strength, that will be our true power. So keep that in mind as well when it comes to, you know, choosing your battles. So let's have our granary. Now, once we got our granary, we're going to be at like 92 on food. I think that's going to set us pretty good. I don't necessarily need to go too far over 100, you know, turns, production per turns in food. And then after that, we're probably going to switch over to production just to get that production up and running. Now, we already have walls built. That was part of the cultures that we picked. And because of that, as you can see, our Fortification strength is at 90. Without stone walls, obviously it wouldn't be at 90, and therefore you may have to think about having troops around just to protect your main city. But as we're already set to 90, we're pretty stable. If people did start attacking us, we could probably duck inside our walls, and they're not going to be able to attack us until probably mid-game, or at least until they got enough troops around you. Now we got enough money to start building someone up as well. And let's end our turn. There we go. So we have met somebody. Our scout has met somebody, which is pretty cool. This is a free city by the looks of it. And with free cities, they are so useful. Basically, you can make friends with them if you give them the Whispering Stone. The more Whispering Stones you have, the more people you can actually talk to at one time. Depending on how you build your faction, you may only start with a single Whispering Stone. You can actually unlock more within your affinity trees as well, so keep an eye out for that. They're really useful though. Basically, you earn relation per turn with this city. Eventually, the aim is to have them become your vassal. As your vassal, they will give you mana, gold, and you know, these things can be really helpful to you. And again, depending on your setup, the perks you pick, they can actually give you a lot more gold as well. And as you bond your vassalage, you can actually get improved relations with them, and they give you an increased amount of gold, an increased amount of knowledge, which again can be really helpful. Or you can straight up just include them in your kingdom, take their city as your own city, both bringing in that race to you. Or you can be a bit more evil and kill off the population and just move straight into their already built city. So it really is up to you when it comes to these free cities. I would absolutely seek them out as early as you can in a game and build relations with them as early as you can. Another good reason to have the whole auto exploration and many scouts. So as the other rulers are taking their turns, I would remind you guys that if you are enjoying this video, or if you have learned anything, or just want to see more Age of Wonders 4 content, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, if we look at our main hero, you can see he is fully healed. Not only is he fully healed, but his power has now returned to 323. And we've got a low risk battle coming up here. Now, what I will show you here is the whole auto combat. Auto combat is pretty good, especially if you know you're already going to win. One thing I would note about the auto combat, however, is it can be a bit tricky, and sometimes troops will die that you know for a fact wouldn't ordinarily die. And your troops will tend to take a little bit more damage as well. So keep that noted. For the most part, it's really useful, however. And we've also got a free reward for doing this, which is pretty cool. Got ourselves a Spring Fairy, and I'm pretty sure, and she is a tier 3 unit, so she's very strong. The one good thing about getting all these extra troops from combats and stuff like that, these rewards, it could be anything. This time it's a free unit. It could have been production, it could have been gold, it could have been almost anything. Could have been an item, a magical item, for instance, for our main hero. The downside to the troops is that that's extra upkeep, and if you're not prepared for it, you can quite easily spiral out and be well without, you know, not within your upkeep, and that can have issues. If that ever is the case, you could always send your troops to their death. But as you can see, we have now powered up. We're now 409, which is pretty cool. And we can also level up our ruler as well. Now, again, depending on the different cultures that you picked, you may have different things here, different options for you. Um, so really have a think about how you may want your hero to play. I'm going to go for something a little bit generic, and we're going to go for experienced leader. So while your army, while you're the army leader, your troops are going to be earning some passive income for experience at least. There we go. And so every single turn that we have played so far, we're in turn 4. We've been earning affinity endpoints based on the number of affinity that we currently have. So we have 1 materium, so we've been earning 1 point per turn. Same for chaos and same for nature as well. And we actually have enough Imperium to buy this perk. It would cost us 50 Imperium. We have 75. Do I want to use it right now? Probably not. Have a think about the perks that you do want to grab on your chosen lines. Like, for instance, in nature, we're not that far away from this perk right here. It will cost us 75 Imperium, but it will mean that our farms that we've already put down will gain an extra 5 food. That's really helpful. But yeah, have a bit of a plan out, because sometimes Imperium can be hard to grab. Sometimes there's a lot of perks that you want, and some of those perks are very, very expensive. For us, however, I'm going to use the Imperium maybe to get ourselves an extra population. However, I do want to talk about outposts as well. So I think I'm actually going to save it. Let's end our turn, because I think outpost is a really good thing to talk about. Outpost is another way, or probably the best way, to get yourself another city. As we mentioned before, we actually started with 1 city out of 4, meaning we can build another 3 more cities. A good way to do that is to build ourselves an outpost. And then when you've built an outpost, you can then transform that outpost into a city. It takes time, it takes Imperium, and it takes money. But it is a great way to kind of plan out defenses around your first city as well. So your first city is your throne city. You certainly don't want to lose it. And so planning cities around your throne city is a great idea. Like, for instance, we're gaining relation with this free city. In fact, in 1 more turn, we're going to be cooperative, or you're going to have cooperation, and eventually they're going to be my vassal, or I could take it over as a city. So 1 city up here is a good thing. 1 city down here, for instance, could be another good defense. I have this mounting right here that's going to be protecting me on my left, so perhaps even making another outpost and another city over here as well could be a good little circular formation. But let's end our turn once again, just because I want to show you this outpost that should pop up. There we go. So just before this popped up, we did see the outpost actually get made. Now, I'm assuming that we have got a little bit closer into actually improving our relations with this free city. And every time you reach a new milestone, you do get interactions with them. So you know when they're going to like pop up and offer you some kind of a deal. Sometimes you can get free resources from them, that being gold, mana, knowledge, even units at times. Sometimes they give you a mission on the map to go and destroy some kind of new beasties. Diplomacy is very interesting with those free cities. In fact, there is so much to go into in regards to diplomacy that we're just not going to be able to fit it in within this episode, as we're already approaching an hour long. But as you can see with the outpost that we put down, we are able to do a few things to it. We're able to fortify it even more, so that way it's actually a defendable point. With outposts, of course, you can actually block off land, which is really cool. And of course, we can turn it into its own verified city. Now, that does take a little bit of time. It does take a little bit of Imperium, but it is one of the best ways to get more cities going in the game, especially if you are trying to go wide. Like I said, buying extra city cap with Imperium does get very, very costly. However, so if you do choose to go wide, you take that into consideration if you want to stay within your cap. Now, like I just said, this episode is getting extremely long, and so we're going to have to end it here and possibly do a very own video on diplomacy, because diplomacy has so much to it and it's something that we haven't really spoken about in this episode. Hopefully I've given you enough information to at least get going in Age of Wonders 4 and at least have an idea of how you should be starting off your game. Of course, this is a role-playing game. You do anything you want, you play any way you want. I'm just trying to give you guys a little bit of a guide and a little bit of an insight in some of the mechanics that this game has to offer. Of course, if I have helped you out, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget we do have that Discord. The link is down in the description. It'd be really great to see more people join along. But anyway, I've been a monk, we've been a Critically Clueless, and I will see you in the next video real soon. Until then, take it easy and happy gaming.